Good afternoon. The House Transportation Subcommittee is now in session. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Representatives Carr, Darby, Glenn, Harris, Hazelwood, Howell, Marsh, Pearson, Russell, Sherrill, Towns, Vital, Wright, Chairman Whitson.
Here.
Chairman, you've got a quorum.
Okay, members, any personal announcements or orders from the team? Seeing none. Did you have one? Vice Chairman Vital, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to recognize two special people from my district, but they really work on behalf of all of Hamilton County. Representatives from Thrive Regional Partnership, who make a difference in all three states, Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama, but are based in Chattanooga and serve a whole host of issues, especially on transportation and the arts and small communities in Main Street. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chairman. Anyone else? Okay, members, we have an agenda today. Item number 1 is by Chairman Hawk of the Great Greene County, Tennessee. Mr. Chairman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a motion and second? We have a motion and second. Also, I show an amendment. Do you have the amendment number?
We do have an amendment, drafting code 013981.
Do I have a motion and second on the amendment? We have a motion and second. Members, we're now voting to put amendment number 013981 on the bill. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Amendment goes on the bill. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized, sir. Explain your bill and the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I think, and no pun intended, we are at a crossroads in terms of funding for our transportation needs. And roads and bridges infrastructure, we have seen reports that we are in the multi-billion dollars short on what we need to be doing to fund infrastructure. We had come up with this particular concept a while back, and it seems to be in vogue once again, having a conversation about, as we're still using the user fee method of funding transportation across the state of Tennessee, what this amendment to the bill will do now is take the sales tax generated from sales of new and used vehicles, as well as tires, and dedicate those to the road fund. It's going to be a source of roughly $1.1 billion in year one that will get those dollars out to our communities and into our infrastructure bill that we desperately need to have, and moves us more quickly toward addressing those multi-billion-dollar investment needs that we have across the state. I appreciate Chairman Howell very much giving me a vehicle through one of his pieces of legislation from last year to bring this bill before this committee, subcommittee chairman, and members.
Thank you, Chairman Hawk. And I think this is very important, something that we should consider in the full committee rather than a subcommittee. And I wish that we could, members will join me in voting to move this to full transportation so we can have an in-depth study of this. Chairman Howell, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being willing to carry such a large and heavy bill. It's something that we have to stop and talk about. And I know there's maybe some thoughts that since we passed the TMA bill last year and we put $3.3 billion in the highway fund, in truth, that is just barely 10% of what the need is. We have about $30 billion in backlogs and deferred maintenance. So at the rate we're going to continue to get behind. And so I think it's good to create a conversation about how are we going to do this going forward for the future generation. And so I appreciate you being willing to start this conversation. And I agree with the chairman. I would urge the committee to pass this out so we can talk about it in the full committee.
Thank you, Chairman Howell. Any other comments? Representative Gwen, was that you scratching your head or was that? Okay. I want to make sure I didn't miss you, soldier. Okay.
Question on the bill?
Question's been called. Members, we are now voting on House Bill 141 to move to full transportation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Chairman Hawk, it moves on to full transportation.
Thank you, Chairman and members. Appreciate it.
Members, next up, we have item number 2, House Bill 2766 from the chairperson from New Bern, Tennessee. Chairman Grills, you are recognized on House Bill 2766. Do
Thank
you
you,
have a
Mr.
motion and a second? We got a motion and a second, and Chairman Grills, I also show that we have an amendment. Which number are you showing there, sir?
14278.
Do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Let's get this thing in proper order. All in favor of putting amendment number 14278 on House Bill 2766, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Amendment goes on the bill. Chairman Grills, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I had 3 people come to me last year in my district that their children were applying for their hardship license. And every person that came to me had the same problem. In order for their child to get the hardship license, they had to take a training course. And that training course consisted of 30 hours of in-classroom studying with 6 hours of driving. And the nearest school for my district was Memphis. In order for them to get that training, they had to drive to Memphis every Saturday for a month so their children could get the proper training in order to be eligible to receive the hardship license. So what this bill does, as amended, says that if you're over 30 miles from the nearest school, then you would be eligible to take the classroom training online.
Okay. First, we heard that. Oh, I'm sorry.
And we have worked with safety on this, and they understand the need. And I believe Ms. Stroker's here. She may be able to nod her head or even answer a question in regards to that.
Yeah, I will call her up after I hear some comments from the committee. Members, do we have any questions? Speaker Marsh, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, where do they have to go to take the driving test?
They would have to go to Memphis and to that school and take the driving portion of the test currently.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Pearson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and would definitely be interested in the committee's comments from the Department of Safety. With this bill, is the training that they'd be getting online going to be any different than what they get coming into the city that's nearest them?
Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that the training online would be to Department of Safety standards.
Okay. One of the things that I'm thinking about is the accessibility that's provided by having the classes online. I think is extremely important, particularly when you're thinking about people's proximity to driver service centers or the schools that are able to offer it, and wonder if it might be possible. I mean, I don't know necessarily why it has to be the 30-mile requirement, why every person who would want to take it online wouldn't be able to. I think this is a good bill, and that could increase accessibility for people too, just across the state.
Well,
Chairman?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I agree with what you're saying there in lots of ways. Leader Lambert and I were talking about this. He just went through the same process with his daughter. And he encouraged me to put the 30-mile radius on that. And I had no objection to doing that because my district obviously is over 30 miles, probably about 100 miles away from Memphis. So I was just trying to work with our leader.
Yeah.
Representative Pearson?
So I do wonder, and I'd be happy to offer sort of like a friendly amendment to it, just like removing that. If the training's not going to be any different, if someone lives in Memphis and wants to take the training online versus having to go to the driver service center, pay the gas, or have their parent have to drop them off, whatever the case is, particularly because these are hardship licenses. So obviously these aren't the best situations for the kid or for the family. And so if they're able to get the same training online, then having to go into a driving service center, I think that would actually increase accessibility just sort of across the board if we took off the mile requirement. What do you think? I'm sorry.
Chairman?
Well, and I understand your position, but my agreement with Leader Lambert, and I will honor my word with Leader Lambert, is the amendment would go on. And like I said, we had several conversations and meetings with the Department of Safety and other people about this, and he felt like that was a good direction to go. And so I agreed with Leader Lambert on that, and that's the way we left it, and I'll honor my word with him.
I do understand that. And to my sort of colleagues, because I guess I'll offer the amendment and you can still be keeping your word with him. But I don't know why we wouldn't just take off that mile requirement and provide accessibility to everybody to be able to take this training online, particularly because they're experiencing so many other hardships in their lives at the point in time that they're dealing with this. But would be interested in knowing if there's some other reason substantive reason from the Department of Safety about why we wouldn't just increase accessibility to everybody to take this training online. Thank you, Chairman.
And if I could add, and I'm sure y'all will work out with the Department of Safety if this should pass, how to verify the 30-mile limit. But, you know, when we're talking about 15-year-olds, I think it's any way possible, in-person training is so much more important than online training. But understand that this is a hardship, and with the distance we're talking about in a rural area. Representative Vital, you're recognized, or Speaker, or Chairman Vital, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question was about the hardship category, and I think it was slightly addressed, but we're typically dealing with a hardship license for a 15-year-old. And I think that classroom training is very valuable. I do understand the distance, and so that's why I'm sympathetic and supportive of your bill. I would also say there's probably a tendency in the country, kids 30, 40 miles out, probably have been driving at a younger age on the farm, so it probably had some practical experience, not to imply that kids in the city don't drive either. So, but I do think it's important that they do have that classroom driving practice, especially with the distractions that 15-year-olds have. And so I support it with the language you've included.
Thank you.
Representative Pearson, you're recognized.
Just for clarity, so 30 hours of study is going to be online and 6 hours would be in-person driving lessons. Is that right?
Chairman?
I don't know exactly. I have not taken the 6-hour driving, but you will drive with the training staff of that school. And like I said, Ms. Stroker's here. She may be able to answer that with more clarity than I can give you.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait for
Representative
that.
Pearson?
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Chairman. I'll wait for Department of Safety.
Do we have any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we are going to go out of session and ask the Department of Safety to come forward. Sorry. Ma'am, would you identify yourself and which department you work for, please?
Elizabeth Stroker, Department of Safety. Representative Pearson, I think I'd have your question. So you were
Okay.
curious on the 30 hours versus the 6 hours. So 30 hours would be kind of your in classroom, what are the rules of the roads, things of that nature. And your 6 hours would be actually driving, which is why that can't be done online.
Okay. Representative Pearson, do you have a follow-up question?
I do. Is the training going to be different for people who live 30 miles away from a testing center location compared to somebody who is going to be going in person or would be forced to go in person?
Ms. Stroger?
No. So it's all still courses that have to be approved by the department. So the training would not be different.
Okay. And
Representative Pearson?
thank you, Chairman. And is there, when you're taking this test, do you have to score 80%, 75%, 60% in order to be able to move forward 100% on the necessary testing requirements?
Ms. Stroker?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to go back and ask our DL team what the percentage is. I know for the general testing at a driver's license center, I think you've got to get an 80% or a 75%. I have to go back and check and I can let you know.
Representative Pearson?
Thank you. Is the test different for people who live in rural communities versus urban communities?
Ms. Stroker?
The test is same statewide.
Representative Pearson?
Thank you so much. If the testing is the same, whether you're in the classroom or you're going in person, you're getting the same instruction. Unless we think that folks in rural areas are going to be getting less good instruction, not only because it's online, but somehow they're going to end up being worse drivers. I am struggling to see why we would not make it so that everybody could just do online instruction for the 30 hours or do it in person and then require the 6 hours of training to be done in person, which I completely and utterly understand.
So, and Representative Pearson, that's not her position here to
Oh, yeah,
devise
I'm sorry.
on
We're not at session.
legislation.
Yeah, I'm done with my
That's your
questioning.
opinion. Okay.
Sorry, I'm done with my
Don't
questions.
put her on the spot, please. Okay.
No, that wasn't for you. That was that. Let's go back in session and then I'll say that. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Speaker Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've taken online courses or seen
Hey, Joe.
programs online, and I've done it in person, and I think it's 10 times better to be in a classroom in person. That way you know that the student's actually listening to you. If you do it online, you don't even know if they're paying any attention at all. So I think it's a whole lot more important to be in person.
Ms.
We'll defer
Stroker?
to the committee on whether or not y'all want to keep it at 30 or not. We're fine either way.
Speaker Marsh? Okay, Chair Lady Hazelwood, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Stoker, just a clarification on the 6 hours of actual in-person driving. Is that with a trained driving instructor? Is that with a parent? Or just any, how does that work?
Ms. Stroker?
That is with the school itself. So with a representative from that school who's a trained driving instructor. But you could also ride with your parent as well, after you get the hardship if you feel like you need more training time.
Chair Lady?
Thank you. My grandson, who is 15, just did the driving course. In class, I think he spent 4 Saturdays, if I'm not mistaken, of his summer doing that. So he was very excited for that opportunity. But again, hopefully it'll make him a better driver. And then the training, he will do that once he gets his permit, actually gets a permit with the driving instructor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lady. And Ms. Stroker, let me ask you, do you have any idea, or the department, on the experience of 15-year-olds driving with hardship licenses? Have you seen any trends or incidents that would be of interest to the committee?
Not aware of any trends or incidents. If the committee wants, we could certainly see how many have been revoked or suspended. The only trend we have seen is that the number of hardships issued have gone up over the past 5 years.
Okay, great. Any other questions for the witness? Chairman Lowell, Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you think we should leave it at 30 miles until we see how well it works online before extending it out to everybody?
Ms. Stroker?
Again, we're going to defer to you all on that. We were okay with the bill as written, and we're okay with 30 miles. So we'll defer to the will of the General Assembly on that.
Thank you.
Chair. Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go back in session. Thank you, Ms. Stroker. My 17-year-old grandson just gave him a car, and he considers it a hardship that it only has a CD player in it. So, do we have any other questions for the sponsor? Representative Pearson.
Yeah, thank you so much. And didn't mean to put you on the spot, my friend from the Safety Committee, Safety and Transportation. Look, if I'm hearing folks correctly here, and Speaker Marsh mentioned this, when people are doing it online, you don't even know if they're paying attention. If the concern is about whether or not people pay attention to doing this online, which is what we're kind of voting for here, I don't know why it would be any different, or those concerns are going to be any different if they're living 30 miles away or 3 miles away. And so while I get it, right? Like, we want people to come in person. And I understand the benefits of that. If we're saying that it is okay for people to become a Tennessee's driver without doing in-person training, if we're saying it's okay and that we trust the Department of Safety to create the necessary platform for them to learn how to drive and be effective drivers on our roads, which God knows we need. If we're saying that that is okay and that it is doable by this legislation, we should make sure that that is an opportunity available to everybody. That's what I'll end with saying. Thank
Okay.
you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Pearson. Chair Lady Hazelwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an observation. I think I would view this as a kind of a pilot program. We do have, it's a hardship license in a hardship circumstance. Driving that far for that many times for the class work, it really is going to make it almost impossible for someone in your district. Maybe one of the things that we need to be talking about is making those, having more of those driving training centers for people to go to. But again, I would be hesitant to make this just statewide carte blanche until we have some more data on how this works. So I support your bill as written. So I just want.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Lady. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to reiterate the fact that once you take the online course, you don't just qualify to get the hardship. You have to have the 6 hours of training. And at that time, you will either pass or fail. And if you can't pass the 6 hours of the driving with that certified or a school or whoever it is that does that, and this is a third-party schooling is the way I understand it. It's not the Department of Safety. So anyhow, leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, sponsor. Representative Nguyen, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What exactly do they do for those 6 hours of the driving piece? Do you know?
Sponsor?
I am 42. It's been a long time since I was eligible to get a hardship, so things have changed since then. So I cannot answer that because I have not experienced that.
It's been 57 years for me. Representative Nguyen, is that? Okay, Representative Harris, you're recognized. We have a question on the bill. Any objection? We see no objections. Members, we are now voting on House Bill 2766. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. House Bill 2766 moves on to full transportation. Sir, I think you have another bill up here. Item number 3, House Bill 2763. Do I have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, for the last bill, and thank you for indulging me on this one. I live in a farming community. There's farmer at every crossroad. There's ranchers across the state. There's hunters across the state, and UTVs have become more popular, or ever popular. And there's lots of folks that are driving UTVs up and down the road. And I don't know that they're doing it within the confines of the law. So what I would like to do is maybe one day expand the law so we can make sure that people are driving up and down the road legally rather than illegally. But after speaking with the Department of Safety over the past couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, we realized that this is a big lift, and making sure that we do it right and not just do it in a hastily manner is more important than getting the bill passed this year. So Mr. Stroker and I and the Department of Safety have agreed to spend some time this summer. And if I'm fortunate enough to get reelected and come back next year, we'd like to take this on at a broader level. So with that, I would like to take this bill off notice with the understanding that we're going to work all summer to try to get this problem fixed across the state.
Yeah, and thank you, Chairman. You know, the years I've been chairman of this subcommittee, every year we seem like we have to deal with this, and we have to kind of operate without any guidelines or guardrails on this. And I think this is a great idea. And this is not just a summer study, just a Senate summer study. My understanding, the department is committed to work closely with you all and come up with a standard that we could possibly fit across the entire state on these issues.
And that is correct, Mr. Chairman. We, in some of the conversations I had with Leader Lamberth and the Department of Safety, that's what we discussed. And we want to make sure we do it right, not quick.
And I hope the next chairman of Transportation Subcommittee comes from this committee and can help you out on that, okay?
I do too, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. I'd like to take this bill off
Without
notice.
objection, the bill is taken off notice. Thank you. Members, next up, we have Representative Hale from Smithville, Tennessee. Sir, you are recognized. We have a motion and a second on House Bill 1623, and once you get settled there, we need to put an amendment to get this bill in proper order. What drafting code do you have, sir, for your amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I have 014324.
Do I have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second to put drafting code 014324 on House Bill 1623. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Amendment goes on the bill. Sir, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill was originally brought to me. There were some issues with school traffic and directing traffic, and cities and counties not having the manpower to be able to direct some school traffic, especially it's real bad in the afternoon when you've got all the parents lined up and trying to get in and out and the confusion. So after working with and getting the wording from TDOT and them working with the Department of Safety and everybody getting on board, they actually brought us the wording for us to get to legal where everybody's on board. And what this bill will do is allow for municipalities and counties to be able to appoint or to hire people to take care of this. And there's certain guidelines that they have to meet. Be an adult who has received the training, qualified with MUTCD, wear the visibility reflective apparel, use a stop paddle. And the statement was made across the state, it's kind of like the Wild West, and this would get it into some kind of uniformity across the state of Tennessee. So with that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, sponsor. Do we have any questions or comments for the sponsor? Chairman Howell, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment. Thank you for working with TDOT and Department of Safety to get your bill in the position that I think it's a good bill now. I mean, it wasn't a bad bill before. We just need to tweak it a little bit, and I appreciate you doing that. And it is a problem. And as I understand it, the volunteers and those who are doing this work, whether it's paid or volunteer, will receive training done by the locals. And it will not be on state roads, but on the roads leading to the school, that type of thing. Is that correct? Very good. Thank you. I support your bill.
Okay. Any others? Seeing none. I'm sorry. Did you say? Oh, Chairman Vital, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, I think it's a good bill. It's a challenge for school crossing, to find good school crossing guards. I know that there are safety laws related to driving in school zones. There's a limitation here of $50 for violation of this new section. How does that fall into place with existing code and fines related to driving in? And maybe it's not a question you can answer to school, in school crossing
Sponsor,
zones.
we can defer to safety if you wish, but you
Yeah,
can
if we
answer.
could defer to safety, I'm not sure of that amount
Sure.
of that.
Okay. Chairman Vital, you want to
Yeah,
go out
that's
of
fine.
session?
Just a quick question on that.
Members, we are, without objection, we're going out of session, and we'll ask the Department of Safety to come up and recognize or identify themselves and tell us what department they're from.
Elizabeth Stroker, Department of Safety. Always happy to come up here when y'all need me. Could you repeat the question for me?
Sure.
Chairman?
In the amendment that we just put on, it deals with knowing an individual who knowingly ignores a regulatory or warning sign posted in a school zone, fine punishable by only $50. I understand that in most school zones, the fine is considerably higher because of the risk we have to children in a school zone. And how does that fall into compatibility with those
Ms. Stroker?
laws in a municipality or state law?
Yeah, so you're correct. When it comes to speeding and things like that, the fines are going to be much higher in a school zone, and they can be dictated by law. I want to say they're somewhere in the hundreds when it comes to speeding within a school zone. But then also, general speeding offenses can be set at the local level. So it is lower than general speeding, and we'll kind of defer to you all if you just want to start there and everything. So
Chairman?
So thank you. So this Class C misdemeanor would only be for violation of disobedience of a individual who was acting to supplement a school crossing guard.
Ms. Stroker?
correct. It wouldn't supersede any other of the citations that would be issued in a school zone.
Thank you.
And Chairman Vital, a few years ago, we also enhanced the penalty for holding a cell phone while in a school zone too. So, okay. Any other
Thank you.
questions for safety? Okay, without objections, we're going back in session. Any other comments for the sponsor? The question has been called. Members, we are now voting on House Bill 1623 to send to full transportation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Bill moves out to full transportation. Thank you there, Representative Hale.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Hey, items 5. Next up, we have Chairman Clemens, my friend from Davidson County. Sir, you are recognized. I have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second. I don't show any amendments. Leader Clemens, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask to roll this one slot behind my other bill, but if you want to go ahead and take it up in order, I'm certainly.
No, we'll be glad to roll it to one spot after your other bill. Okay, so members, let's move on to item number 6, House Bill 2175 by Leader Clemens. Do I have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second. And also, let's get it in proper format. Leader Clemens, I show a drafting code of 014182. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a motion and a second on the drafting code? We have a motion and a second on the drafting code. We need to get in the format here. We are to place drafting code 014182 on House Bill 2175. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment goes on. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. The amendment that just went on made a little amendment there to address a minor concern of the Tennessee Department of Transportation. What this bill would do would establish the Student Pedestrian Protection Grant Program here in the state of Tennessee. Currently, we have some great grant programs, But I really have an issue in my district, and some of you probably have similar problems within your districts, where the areas around public schools or schools in your district do not have sidewalks. I have several Title I schools in my district. I represent one of the fastest growing communities in the state of Tennessee here in Southeast Nashville along the I-24 corridor, down which some of you travel routinely. And while we have a multimodal grant program within TDOT currently, and there are grants available for public schools that sit on state highways, we don't have any grant programs or vehicles to create revenue or generate revenue to local governments for schools that are not on a state highway. And that's what this would allow. This would be specifically open to any local government to apply for this grant with the state of Tennessee. It would put up its matching funds, be held for quarterly reports, and be able to access resources through whatever means they would come through this program to build, develop, and improve sidewalks around public schools. I'm actually taking part. This was brought to me by a principal in my district at Paragon Mills Elementary School here in Nashville that I'm proud to represent. And tomorrow we're having a walk to school day. And we're actually going to walk from a Baptist church in my community up two roads that are often traveled by elementary age students that have to walk in ditches and on the side of a road just to get to elementary school, for up to a mile and a half. And so this is something I want to address if possible. And again, the onus is on local governments to apply for this and be held accountable for it and put up some of their own funds as well. And this doesn't mandate any funds from the state of Tennessee this year or in the future. It simply says the intent is for funds to be appropriated in the 25-26 fiscal year, but it does not mandate those. Of course, I would love to see them so that this could be used. But this merely creates that grant program for those purposes as described. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask for adoption of this and passage.
Well, Leader Clemens, I think this is a great bill. I've been in the news about the number of pedestrian deaths and especially in Nashville. But if this can help around schools, elementary schools especially, I know I grew up in South Nashville. There was no sidewalks to our elementary school, and we did not have bus service, and we walked in those ditches. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. Do we have any comments? Seeing Representative Pearson, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Clemens, as well, for bringing this legislation. In District 86, this is a big problem. A lot of our communities do not have sidewalks, and the responsibility has unfortunately been told to be borne by the people who are living in the homes. Due to this rental crisis that we have, it isn't something that's being prioritized and taken care of. And as we think about schools protecting our children, this is just so imperative that we do everything that we can. And so I'm completely supportive of this building of this grant program and making sure that we make going to school and being in school safe for all of our kids, regardless of which communities they're in. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Representative Towns. Sir, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, really enough has been said. It's a good bill. Simply, Mr. Leader, like to sign on to the bill. Anything we do for our little people to keep them safe, 100% there. So love to sign on to it.
Thank you.
Chairman Howell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to add that this is a problem that also occurs in rural parts of Tennessee. I was just sitting here thinking about the schools in my district where this is a problem. Little narrow city or county roads in my district that some of the kids are close enough they can walk to school, but they have to walk on the road itself because there are no sidewalks. And so I think this might be a good solution. So glad to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay, members. Now we are voting to send House Bill 2175 to full transportation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Leader moves on to full transportation. Now, members,
sir.
we're going back to item number 5, House Bill 1612. Do we have a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second. And sponsor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are no amendments for this piece of legislation. And look, there's no secret that I oppose toll lanes. Chairman Howell knows this. We went around about this last year, the Transportation Modernization Act, as it was called last year. And I really do think there's a lack of education across the state of Tennessee as to what that law allows and can be read to allow. Any state roadway in the state of Tennessee could have a toll lane put on it. And now I know it's intended, and it's been argued that it's intended for the interstates and things like that. It isn't limited to those, though. And the first round is scheduled for I-24, which is the heart of my district, the I-24 corridor between here and Rutherford County. My district overwhelmingly opposes toll lanes. That's why I oppose toll lanes. So what this bill would do is simply require local control and give locals a formal say in the process. So this would require approval of a county or the municipal governing body in which the toll lane is projected to go, to give them the opportunity to take a vote on this and approve the project. And then the process set forth in current code would begin. So once the local municipality or governing body decided, yes, we want this in our jurisdiction, it would go to the state funding board, and the subsequent the steps set forth in the statute would take place. It also prohibits TDOT from using funds from the Transportation Modernization Fund to build these toll lanes. Now, last year, as you recall, we passed a pretty significant budget, $3.3 billion into the Transportation Modernization Fund to be spread across the state of Tennessee. I don't think many of us expected that those dollars would be spent to build a toll lane that would profit a private entity. If the purpose for that privatization, if the purpose for that toll lane, aside from addressing traffic congestion, which I don't think it's going to do, data would show, and all that aside, a private entity is going to contract with the state of Tennessee on a 30 to 50-year contract. They're in charge of running that toll lane. They're in charge of setting those variable rates. Why the argument that was made was, well, we don't have the money to build these additional lanes anymore. We need help, so let's privatize them. So if that's the case, why are we using portions of the $3.3 billion Transportation Modernization Fund to build those toll lanes, just to privatize them? All of us, whether we rural community or urban community, we need that money. We need that money to address issues and solve our traffic congestion problems in a real and productive and substantive way. I would hate to see Tennessee taxpayers' money be spent on a lane that is going to be privatized and profit a third-party private entity. I don't think that's right. I don't think Tennesseans know that that's how that money is going to be spent. So again, this simply gives local control. First step, require locals to approve a toll lane in their jurisdiction. Second, let's not use transportation modernization funds to build the toll lanes that are going to be privatized for people to profit. That's it. Thank you. I move passage.
Thank you, Leader, or Clemens. And,
I'll take either.
Okay, what's that?
I'll take either title you want to give me.
Leader Clemens, my issue with it has to do with the control or the authorization to stop the construction of the choice lanes. That means I-24 would have to go through Smyrna, Laverne, and require their approval also. They're cities just like Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, we would have Spring Hill, Franklin, and also Brentwood, and then Nashville. We pass this as a comprehensive long-term solution to our traffic issues that we have. And that's why I just want to go on record why I oppose your legislation on this bill. So with that, Representative Towns, you are recognized, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I need to get some clarity because part of what the leader's talking about came through our committee. And I'm under the impression that the funds that he's speaking of were for infrastructure concerns for our state, bridges and roads and congestions, not to be utilized for a private entity. And my understanding was that those entities were going to supply all the money, rent and control the facility that we still own at some point and give it back, and we would split the money. So how is it that this additional funding is supposed or can be possibly applied to building and constructing something that a private entity is supposed to be doing? I need clarity on that.
Sponsor.
Yeah, that's exactly what, I don't think many people intended for those funds to be used to build these toll lanes. I think they expected that they were going to be used to address and improve safety and build bridges and roadways within communities across the state of Tennessee, not be used in part or in total, probably in part, to fund the construction of toll lanes. I don't think anybody intended that. I think the entire argument around, hey, let's have toll lanes was, like I said, we need private entities to help pay for these things. Well, this code also, and as Chairman Howell and the chairman will tell you, there are other funds from which these monies can be pulled to build these toll lanes. I'm simply taking out the Transportation Modernization Fund, that $3.3 billion that all of us put it on the line for last year and said, we need to improve transportation infrastructure. We're going to allocate this money, appropriate this hard-earned money from taxpayers and put it towards those things. I don't think any of us intended, well, I wouldn't say any of us, I don't think most of us intended for that money to be used to build a privatized toll lane.
Representative Towns.
Mr. Chairman, I'd love to ask Chairman Howell, is that the same understanding that we have? Because this is not the understanding that I had when it came before committee. And if it is, it's very disturbing that we would use that modernization money for a private entity to go out and build something and give us part of the money back when we financed it. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Representative Towns, I have Chairman Howell next on my list to talk about this as the sponsor of the legislation.
I'll defer, sir.
Okay,
And
thank
wait.
you. Chairman Howell, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the chairman and I have had many interesting debates about this issue, and his comments is a lot to unpack, but I'll just try to hit the highlights. I believe in the code that was passed, in the Modernization Act, we actually removed the word toll lanes, toll roads from the Tennessee Code. It's interesting, I was talking to some people from Texas and Florida recently, and they asked about what we were doing, and they said, oh, you're building choice lanes. They knew the difference between choice and toll, Chairman. These are choice lanes. People have a choice. And just like when I go to Georgia, I can take the choice lane going into Atlanta if I choose to. And if I don't, I just stay on the regular lane. That's why they're called choice lanes. But several other things. These roads are not privatized. I know there's a narrative out there that says they are. Tennessee owns its roads. Tennessee will always own its roads. The P3s have a contract with TDOT to operate those roads. And if they do not operate them up to the standards and the contract that TDOT has with them, they will fire that contract, fire that P3 agency, and give it to somebody else. So they always belong to TDOT and the people of Tennessee. And with regard to the vote of the locals, it would just be unprecedented to allow a local governing body to stop the project of an interstate. That's never been done, as far as I know, in the history of building of interstates. I was just thinking about yesterday, we had the TMA board met for the first time, and they voted to approve the Choice Lane project, the very first one through the chairman's district. But if we had to wait then after they approved it for the local body to vote and to, I don't know if they put it to a public vote or what, imagine the delay we would have. The same types of delays that we've experienced in many years past. So that's just kind of a highlights there, and I'll leave it at that. But for those reasons, I can't support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Howell.
Can I respond?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that, and I understand the semantics of the issue, and we changed all those provisions in the code to change toll lane, to user fee facility, and choice lane, and so forth. But the bottom line is, if I have to pay a toll to drive on a road, it's a toll lane, whether it's one lane or the entire roadway. That's my opinion. And it may be a choice to drive in that lane, but I'm still paying a toll. So it's a toll lane. Entities contract with TDOT. That's absolutely true. That technically is the property of the state of Tennessee, that roadway, in coordination with the federal government and contract with TDOT. These contracts are 30 to 50 years long. I don't think there's any disagreement on that. And if I choose to drive on that lane and I don't pay that toll, guess who sues me? The private company. So anything that they control that
Leader
they can,
Clemens, let's stay on the bill, okay? We fought this battle last year, okay?
well, I'm just responding to
Okay.
the point that was made.
Okay, go ahead.
If they can sue me for not paying their toll and they're profiting from the toll, they control the lane. And I'm paying a toll, it's a toll lane. So the code can call it whatever it wants. Representative Towns.
Representative Towns, you're recognized, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I mean, the back and forth obviously is educating us all over again, and we need it. I'm going to say, but that's not my concern. My concern is who's paying for it initially. And Mr. Chairman, Chairman Howell, I thought that the entity that would come and provide the service would spring for that capital up front, and we didn't have any money up front because we're giving them the road and the actual land to develop, which was our skin in the game, so to speak, and that we didn't have any money. But now I'm hearing that we have we're financing part of it, which is not what I understood to be initially. And I'm going to finance it, and then you're going to give me some of my money back. I may as well hire you with the money to build it and then take all the money back. So I'm wondering, where is the money coming from to complete this road, this choice or toll, whatever you want to call it? Where does the initial money come from? That's what I'm interested in.
Okay, thank you, Representative Towns. Chairman Howell, you're recognized to respond to the sponsor's comments.
Representative Towns, you're exactly right. If you go back and look at my presentation, I believe the way I explained it was the P3s, of course, there's about 20 years of experience of P3s in the United States. I think Texas may have been one of the first, and Tennessee was blessed to visit Texas, and they gave us some really good advice on things that worked and things that didn't. And so we tried to eliminate the things that didn't. But one thing that they did do was allow the P3s, and the P3s usually have a contract with the state, like most contracts, has an 80-20 match. I'll give you an example. I really don't know what this road out here is going to cost, but I will grant you that it will be somewhere at least $1 billion. 80-20 match, and we pass a $3.3 billion infrastructure bill. I feel like I'm debating this bill all over again, folks. But if that's $1 billion bill, the P3 is going to put $800 million in. Tennessee gets a $1 billion roadway for $200 million, which saves $800 million for TDOT to widen our interstates in our rural communities. To me, that sounds like a pretty good deal. So what this bill projects to do is to allow the locals to have veto over that, and I just don't think it's good policy. It's just a disagreement on policy. That's all it is.
Thank you, Chairman Howell. Next up, I have Representative Glenn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In what was being said, that if the contractor does not do what they're supposed to do, then the state takes back over the road. Can the state afford to take back over the road if we're struggling to pay for the roads we have?
Sponsor, again, let's stay on the bills, but before we get in conjecture and stuff. Go ahead.
I defer to the chair.
At your convenience, if you want to ask TDOT to come up, I believe they're willing to address some of these issues.
Sponsor would go ahead and answer the question, and we'll go out of session if we need to.
I mean, you're welcome to that session. It's up to your discretion. I would just say to answer your question, if they breach their contract, then the state of Tennessee would have to decide whether or not to prosecute that or whether or not just to fine them and continue to allow them to keep operating the roads. I know of no instance in any other state that's been referenced here today where contracts have been breached and the state has taken back over that roadway. My only response to the chairman's hypothetical is the 80-20 match. So if taxpayers are going to pay that $200 million of the state portion, guess who's paying the other $800 million? Taxpayers. They're paying it in tolls. So it's not, it may save the state technically, but Tennessee taxpayers are still paying the entire amount. That's why I think locals need to decide. The only project in here is I-24. That's the only proposed project at this time. Why don't we ask the people who drive on I-24 every day and through which I-24 goes if they want a toll road? I can tell you the ones in District 55 do not. Smyrna may, Murfreesboro may. I don't think so, but let's ask them. That's all I'm at. That's all this bill does. Let's have local control. That's it.
Thank you, sponsor. Representative Pearson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Would it be okay if I ask my questions to TDOT first?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Without objection, we're going out of session and ask the representative of TDOT to come up and identify himself and his department.
Thank you, Chairman. Jay Klein with TDOT.
Thank you, Jay. And again, thank you, Chairman Clemens. Thank you for the questions. Members, thank you, Chairman Howell. I was not on this committee at the time the choice lanes or toll roads were decided. But there is some information that I just would like to know a little bit more about. From the choice lanes, toll roads, how much is expected to be generated sort of in revenue from these?
Jay?
Yeah, thank you,
Or
Chairman.
Mr. Klein.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Representative, thanks for the question. So the projected revenue, I'm afraid I don't have a specific kind of projection there, but what I would say as far as the investment and kind of the project itself is I think that the figures that were thrown out earlier are generally speaking what we've been looking at. You know, there's an ideal project size for a project like this, and so around that $1 billion is typically what we'd be looking at as far as that investment. And of course, with that private partnership, they'll be looking to over the course of that partnership, which is a long-term lease agreement. So as I think had been mentioned before. The state always owns the asset. It's merely a lease agreement with that private partner. And so over the course of that partnership, they're of course looking to recoup their investment in that project that is financed in large part, or in some cases completely upfront by the partner. And so that's kind of what they're going to be looking at. And so there's very involved complex studies in the industry referred to as traffic and revenue studies that do some of those calculations and taking into account things like growth in population, usage of the asset, things like that over the course of that. So a lot of that would be really subject to fluctuation depending on how long the term is, things like that. So but what I would say as far as revenue generation too, and this may also speak to a couple of the questions that Representative Towns had posed, as the partnership as it relates to the state's contribution to the project is not necessarily something that is necessarily required. There could be, and there are several examples from other states of partnerships where due to the required competitive process, which is in our law, where you have these partners, these potential partners competing against each other, they actually, may come with a proposal in which they will fund the entirety of the project. And what I would refer to as a public contribution, that 80-20, that 20 that Chairman Howe was referencing, where you wouldn't actually have that required. And to the point about whether or not it is required and what additional approvals there are, there's requirements in the legislation that if there is a public contribution towards the project, that it has to be included in the department's budget and go through the general appropriations process with the General Assembly. And then finally, just to kind of bring that to a close, that if we do have a public contribution in the project, then we would expect to participate in that revenue sharing. Obviously, if we're participating at a 20%, 80%, that might, impact that. But depending on the structure of the contract, it could be, collections over a certain point within a given year, or collections over a certain point, a threshold, if you will, over the life of that. And those dollars are ready to be reinvested in transportation as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Klein. Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman. So for this process, taking I-240, because what I'm hearing at least is that there's sort of both things are true from the chairman that were speaking. So roughly $1 billion. Today, is there the 80, for this project that's going through Chairman Clemens's district, is there the 80-20 match for that project now?
Mr. Klein?
Yep. Thank you for the question. So that is what we will essentially be seeking to determine through that competitive solicitation. So really all we're at for this project right now is that project was included in our 10-year plan, which laid out the investment strategy for that $3 billion from last year, supporting 93 site-specific transportation projects all across the state. Some really great projects in there in our urban, suburban, and our rural communities. And so that was kind of and there was a set aside for a potential contribution, which is the amount that's included in that 10-year plan is $250 million. So that is the set aside for that. And then what that public contribution may or again, may not be needed at all. That would be the result of that competitive solicitation that we're going towards. But again, if there is a public contribution required, before that can be committed to that project, we have to come back as part of our budgetary
Thank you,
process.
Mr. Klein.
Okay. And this is my
Representative
final-
Pearson, you have another question?
Yep, this will be my final question, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Klein, for the clarification. So I have some thoughts based on that, but I do appreciate it. Chairman, in our full transportation committee, I believe TDOT came and the first choice lanes weren't going to be until 2027. Is that correct?
Mr. Klein?
So as far as when we would have that, what we would term as commercial close, so that's sort of the coming, that agreement, correct, that would not be reached. So really all we're at right now is we've been approved for the further development of the I-24 Southeast project. And so before, and that's required before we would go to market. And then, again, once we have a, proposal in hand, there's some additional approvals with our 3-year plan, as well as if there is a public contribution, then that has to be included in our budget as well for that given year. So,
And members, let's stay focused on the bill that we're dealing with, not the entire the Modernization Transportation Act. That battle was the old battle. And so Representative Pearson, you got another question?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Nope, just looking for making sure I understand clarification because I do have points and want to be intelligible about what I say. But thank you so much, Mr. Klein, for giving us an update here.
happy to help.
Representative Towns, you're recognized, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for the ability to volley back and forth to get an understanding. What I heard you say is that it's not been determined yet what the mixture, the configuration, the financial configuration will be. Now, and what the Transportation Committee has done before it's met with us and shared just how costly these 93 projects are. And if we can and don't have to initiate any revenue in the game, we need that money for these 93 projects. These projects are very expensive and bridges, and they need to be done. And so if we can have just consideration, I know you're not the final say in it, but I'm just going to suggest that if we don't have to put any money in it, don't. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Towns. Okay, without objection, we're going back in session. Sponsor, you get the last word. Oh, no, hold on, we got someone before you. Hold on. Sponsor.
Is this it? No further questions.
Okay. Speaker Marsh.
Okay. Well, I get to speak, but
What's? I'm sorry, I didn't.
I asked for us to go out of session when it was my turn.
Oh, you asked to go out of session?
yeah, that's what I was asking.
Okay, who did you want to ask?
I asked for us to go out of session.
Oh, Representative.
To get TDOT, and then I asked questions to TDOT.
Okay, I thought you were finished asking questions. We went to Representative Towns out of session, then we're back in session, and we're back to the sponsor.
Yeah.
You can ask the sponsor a question if you have, but after Representative, but we have, a question has been called on the bill, though, before we went back to you.
Well,
No, we went to Representative Towns after you. That's right. Hold on one second.
Thank you.
Okay, before we call the question, there was he did raise his hand. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Okay, Representative Pearson, for the sponsor.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And sponsor, I just want to make sure that I understand two things. Look, I understand the complication as it relates to these toll choice lanes and the reality that folks in your district do not want them. And the challenge that has been mentioned here by Chairman Howell and others of like, we've got a problem with congestion. We know that this is something that we need to fix. And Mr. Klein and TDOT came before our full committee once before, and it was to the tune of about $30 billion, what is needed to address the significant and substantial issues that we have for infrastructure in our state, which I know that we need to do something about. The second thing that I think that you bring up, which is really important here, is the comment about local control, that for communities to take on the burden of any infrastructure, to take on the burden of anything, and make it as least of an imposition as possible, I think is extremely important. And so when you have talked with people in your community about the issue of local control, potential overreach, and just the need or want to be included via a resolution or something like that, even if it's not binding necessarily to this General Assembly, what has been sort of the feedback that they have requested or wanted to see from this General Assembly instead?
Sponsor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for that question, Representative Pearson. Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, there's overwhelming opposition. Certainly haven't heard anything in favor of it. There may be a few in favor of it, and so I'm not going to sit here and say 100%, but everyone from whom I've heard is opposed to this. And I will give TDOT credit. TDOT has come and answered questions. They're coming to a town hall that I'm hosting next week to talk about it and the commuter rail and all that. So TDOT has been good to work with. But I would say, for all of us who were around in the Approve Act and want to get projects on the list, on the new projects list, we are asked to get resolutions from our local governments to ask for those. So I don't think it's unprecedented to get local input on projects within a district. It is our people. And now, look, interstate travelers, others will be coming through here and choosing whether or not to pay these tolls as well. So I don't want to say that it's only Tennesseans that are going to be paying these tolls either. I don't want to misrepresent that. But they are the ones who are going to be primarily affected by this. And I think they deserve a say. I think they deserve a formal say codified before, we do it. And the reality is Speaker Marsh, I mean, if TDOT, if they want to build a toll road on Madison Street in Shelbyville, they can do it under this law. Your people might not like that. And so this is just hypothetical. You would want your people to have a say. They don't have a formal say in the process right now. Poplar Avenue, they can put a toll lane on Poplar Avenue. You think the people of Memphis are going to want a toll lane on Poplar Avenue? I don't think so. They're going to want to say. That's all I'm saying. Just because it's just happening in my district right now doesn't mean it's not going to happen in your district. Any state roadway, I'm just warning you. That's all I'm asking for. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, sponsor. Chairman Marsh, or Speaker Marsh, you're recognized. The question has been called. Members, we are now voting on House Bill 1612 to send to full transportation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Fails. If you request to be recorded as a yes vote, see the clerk.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to thank you. You are going to be dearly missed next year. If you follow through with your plans not to run for re-election, I appreciate your professionalism. It is going to be sorely missed. So thank you very much, sir, for your leadership.
Thank you, Leader Clemens. I tell you, I will miss working with good folks like you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I've been on this committee since the Improve Act, and we hadn't had this much discussion since then. Okay. So, okay, members, item number 7 by Representative Jernigan has been taken off notice. That takes us to item number 8, Representative Dixie of Davidson County. Sir, you are recognized. This is Davidson County Day on the Hill. Okay. I don't show any amendments. You're recognized on House Bill 2105, sponsor.
Mr. Chairman, I like you too. So.
Okay.
Actually, you was my first.
Can you speak
Sweet
up
mate.
some though on the mic?
So you were my first friend here on the Hill. Our offices were side by side, so he would come in and welcome me and make me feel welcome.
I would start with the chair lady of finance.
Well, thank you. I just want to talk about this bill. It authorizes the Department of Safety to issue a driver privilege card or permit card to an applicant who is otherwise ineligible for a driver's license due to not being a citizen, a United States citizen, or a lawful permanent resident in the United States. They would have to reside in Tennessee. They would have to have reported income and deductions from a Tennessee sources that or has been claimed as a dependent on a federal income tax in the preceding 12 months, and also meet the financial responsibility requirements, which means they would have to have insurance. This bill is about making roads safer. The bill was brought to me by a local judge here in Davidson County who was seeing a lot of people come to his courtroom who were unable to get a Tennessee driver's license, which meant they were also not trained on our road laws and also uninsured. This bill would remedy that issue by creating and providing access to driver privilege cards or permits for people who otherwise are not eligible for a temporary driver's licenses. This creates and provide access to a privilege card, and it will make it safer for all families on the road because some of these unlicensed drivers who haven't had the opportunity and had the access to the state's system of training and testing. Hopefully car insurances will go down for everyone, and there's increased road safety and decreases the number of uninsured drivers. I would like to also add that right now, Tennessee has laws that prevent states and cities from offering identification cards that show residency, and it makes it harder for law enforcement to hold people accountable while they're driving on these roads. And I just wanted to say that there are 21 other states in the country that have passed some form of this bill. So this is not blue states. Utah, Minnesota, New Jersey, Vermont, Nevada, just a few. So realizing that this bill has a long road to hoe, I'd like to see if I could roll it for like 2 weeks. If I could roll the bill for 2 weeks.
Without objection, we'll roll it for 2 weeks.
And I
What's that?
appreciate you taking time to listen.
Oh, and
to
I'd
me.
like to announce our final calendar is March 13th, so that will be on the final calendar.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Diskey, thank you. Okay, members, 2105 has been rolled to our final calendar on 13 March. That brings up item number 9 by Representative Wright of Knox County. Sir, you are recognized. At your seat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second.
May I present from my seat?
You are recognized from your seat, and we have a motion and a second. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 2128, authorizes issuance of an antique motor vehicle license plate to farm trucks older than 25 years that are used for certain agricultural, horticultural purposes and not for general transportation, and they must have a non-modified engine, non-modified body. Examples of usage, but not limited to operating from one part of an owner's land used for agricultural, horticultural purposes to another, regardless of whether the tracks adjoin. Another use example is disposing of trash generated on a farm. Another example is obtaining supplies for agricultural, horticultural purposes such as seeds, fertilizers, chemicals, or animal feed. Another usage would be like on a seasonal basis to move farm produce and livestock along a public highway. And one more example would be between a sawmill and the farm owner's land, the purpose of transporting sawdust, wood shavings, slab wood, or other wood waste. Now, the examples that I've given all contain a 75-mile limit. A couple of other stipulations is the person owns or leases another motor vehicle that is registered and that is used primarily for general transportation. Second stipulation is the owner must provide location and acreage of the farm or land being used for agricultural, horticultural purposes, and the type of commodity being farmed. It's also a penalty for misuse of this antique plate. It would be the forfeiture of the antique motor vehicle registration, and the person would be liable for the regular registration fee. And it would also bar the person from holding an antique motor vehicle registration for 5 years. And with that brief, I hope that was brief enough explanation, I am seated for questions.
Okay, so do we have any questions for the sponsor? Representative Pearson, you're recognized.
Call for previous question.
Oh, let me check. Could you withdraw that? Let's see if we had any questions on this complex bill.
I'm happy to withdraw.
Okay, I don't see any questions. Question has been called to move House Bill 2128 to full transportation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill moves on to full transportation. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Pearson. Okay, next up, we have item number 10 from our friend from Shelby County. Representative Harris, you're recognized on House Bill 2512.
Thank you, Chairman, and if I could be recognized from my seat so that way I don't.
You're recognized from your seat.
I appreciate that. And so
we have a motion and a second on your bill.
Awesome, thank you. And so this piece of legislation, House Bill 2512, over the last few years, we've seen where it used to be where one house was on a plot of land, and now we're seeing 4 houses on a plot of land. And so that's also making more and more congestion in our neighborhoods to where more and more cars are having to park on both sides of the roads. And then this situation that took place last year, there was a fire truck trying to get down a neighborhood street and was unable to do so. The fire truck honked its horn multiple times to get people to come outside to try to assist in moving their vehicle so they can get down the street to the burning home. And so this bill here would make it to where you would, in order to park on both sides, the neighborhood roads would have to be at least 23 feet wide, which is a 9-foot fire truck, 6.5-foot Tahoe on one side, and another 6.5-foot Tahoe on the other. That's 22.5 feet. And so 23 feet in total is what this legislation would do, just to make sure that we can get our emergency vehicles down neighborhood streets. Metropolitan governments like Nashville and Davidson County already have something similar in their ordinance code, and as well as other cities like Hendersonville, Bartlett, Cooksville, and Lebanon also have some sort of ordinance when it comes to parking on both sides of the streets. And so this legislation is something that I'm still working on, and just wanted to make sure that I addressed it with the committee, maybe have some dialogue about it before I pull it off and look at what it looks like to roll this for next year.
Okay. Before we roll it, I'd like to hear from Representative Towns.
And thank you for the bill as well. 23 feet, that may be cutting it too close. That's close. 6 and 6 and 9, that's scraping, man. You know what I mean?
Sponsor?
That truck needs to get through there for real.
I definitely agree. But with the way roads are built, we would have to go through and reconstruct a whole lot of area and take up some land if we wanted to spread it any further than that.
Even 6 inches?
Yeah. The only thing we did was add half a foot.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And again, I appreciate you working with me on this bill, and we had a good discussion about, the municipal codes and such. Representative Pearson, I'll give you last word before.
Thank you so much. The only thing I would think about is the identification areas where it would be this close, because you don't want people to be getting misdemeanors literally on accident because they're just parking in front of their house. And so I would just want to think through with TDOT and others to make sure those places are demarcated as don't park here for
Sponsor?
reason.
And so that's what we're going to be working on in Shelby County and Memphis. We have some certain areas where there are street signs that show you where you can and cannot park. And that's what we'll see what some other areas are doing before we actually run this legislation.
And Representative Harris, you want to make sure I understand. You want to take this off notice
Yes,
for this
take
session?
this off notice. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
without objection, House Bill 2512 is taken off notice. Members, just a reminder, we announced to the radio and the TV audience out there that 6 March is the last day to file your bill if you want to hear it in this committee. And our final calendar is scheduled for 13 March. So do we have any final? Okay, without objection, we are adjourned. Joe, you can be here on the later.